obviously we all have to get more creative to make sure that our kids are continuing to stay engaged and not getting bored and finding other ways for them to move and different ways to quickly sanitize the equipment that we use as well.
So could Peter Z tell us about Mirror Mirror? Because I think this might, if it's what I think it is, it might be a great activity for student ownership and balance.
Would it be easy to, like, especially with the 4th and 5th graders, if they had like their squad was assigned that job for the week?
And then Yoga Wheel works on balance. Leslie, can you expand on that? I'm not familiar with Yoga Wheel.
Because I'm worried about the 35, 40 minutes if we don't have games.
I try to find, at least for the kindergarten first graders for locomotor movements, I try to find children's stories that I can read, and as I read them, they act them out.
I would actually challenge that because my 4th grader can't vacuum the floor.
Well, I don't disagree with you there. That's kind of the whole.
So,
Our teachers have to go through a training before we can even use hand sanitizer or wipes. I'm not kidding.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh, but
Has anybody here not heard of the Alaska rock, paper, scissors?
the Alaska one?
Yeah.
how about for balance and weight transfer? We've been focusing on gymnastics. Is there another way to meet that standard
Great question, Jamie.
other than gymnastics?
No, this zone thing's got my brain going. I'm kind of feeling a little bit better all of a sudden. That maybe there's a potential.
Welcome, physical educators. This is Thinking PE.
Because FIED is more than just fun and games.
I'm Stacy Nelson,
And I'm Jamie Seneca.
and it's our goal to dig deeper beyond the activities that make your class awesome.
So buckle up and join us on this journey.
Welcome to another edition of Thinking PE. Hey, Jamie, you know what I was thinking? I was thinking about Mr. Woodcock, the movie. And it's all your fault. It's all your fault that I'm thinking about that movie. Can you tell everybody why it's your fault that I'm thinking about Mr. Woodcock today?
I will take full responsibility for that. That's Billy Bob Thornton, Sean William Scott, one of my top 10 movies of all time. Takes every stereotype of a FIED teacher that we can think of and puts it into a movie. So, you got to step back and take a good laugh once in a while. And that's what that movie does for me. I love it.
Oh, I haven't seen the full movie yet. I just looked at some of the clips on YouTube and I got so enthralled with it. I just chuckled. I thought, I've got to do something with this. We need to bring this into the podcast some way, somehow. So I took a very short clip of this and we're going to share this, and if people don't like it, we can stop. But I think people need to be introduced to Mr. Woodcock if they haven't already. And if they have, I'm sure they love it. Especially if you're a PE teacher. So what I'm going to do is play this clip and take a peek at it. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about it.
And you, I'm down in the luck with your mama bee to marry a gym teacher. She knows that he plays hopscotch for a living, right?
So thank you for sharing that clip from Mr. Woodcock. But I got to tell you what I've really been thinking about is this whole, what we've started to call hashtag 6 feet PE, teaching physical education while respecting social distancing. And going back to us being the hopscotch teachers, just like Mr. Woodcock said there, how are we going to teach these locomotor and non-locomotor skills while respecting social distancing? And that's not a rhetorical question because A, I do want to know the answer, and B, I care.
Yeah, well, it does sound an awful lot like herding cats. I mean, holy cow, if you've ever taught PE, kindergarten, those first days, you got kids going all over the place anyway, and now we're adding these extra stringents on there of it's not okay to have them go anywhere. They have to stay in a confined area and stay away from each other and that kind of thing. So this first clip that we're going to be listening to, that was kind of how we introduced last Thursday, is how are we going to do this with the social distancing and respecting those rules and those boundaries. And it's phenomenal. This group of teachers, I tell you, you get a group of 25 or so PE teachers in a room, you can solve just about any problem, it feels like. They talked about in this clip, listen for how they talked about teaching spatial awareness will probably be critical right from the beginning, as well as locomotor skills. And then they move into talking about just how to organize your gym, putting a grid on the floor, that type of a thing. So with that, kind of listen for those things as you listen to this clip. not everybody here is teaching elementary, I get it, but for a lot of people, this is what it's going to look like. And it's like that every year. It's like we're herding cats, but we're going to add a couple extra tough pieces onto this. We're going to make it so now you got to keep these kitties 6 feet apart, or 1.8 meters for all of you who are our metric friends. And any equipment you use has to be sanitized. Now, there might be a whole lot of other things that come at us. We don't know. We might have half a classroom. You might have, you might have double classroom. You might have only half your gym to work with. There's a ton of other things. But let's kind of start with this as a parameter where, for sure, if we're going to do activities, we have to maintain the distance and do the sanitizing in and out. And on top of it, we got to make it fun and engaging for the kids. Otherwise, you know what happens when we don't have things that are engaging. The behaviors go up and it's a disaster. So let's start talking about locomotor, then we'll get to non-locomotor. And I included dance in this. A lot of people, elementary, do start with the locomotor stuff. And it's not just teaching it, but it's using and assessing. How can we approach locomotor, the skills and beyond skills, activities, games, that type of thing, from a social distancing platform. Tom, I know you got some ideas. You just need permission to talk here. I'm gonna call you out and get things started here for us.
Oh, thanks, Stacy. Good evening, everybody. Well, when you're teaching rhythms, you want everybody to have their own space anyway, just so they can move around. So I would think that rhythms and dance would lend itself a little bit more better to, the 6 feet apart than maybe some other standards, where it might not be as conducive to transform it into the 6 feet of learning space.
Okay.
I'm able to project it up on a screen.
Okay.
And do the mimic. And then I've also got my gym gridded. So they have crosshairs basically already where they know where to be. And so they just have to stay within that area. And we've already gone in and made all the grids 6 feet apart.
Oh, okay. And you did that with just floor tape, Justin, or?
Yeah, with floor tape.
Okay. All right. So they can move within that 6x6 box and do a whole bunch of different activities?
Yeah.
How many boxes do you have then, 6x6 in your gym? Approximately.
Probably 40 or something. So I have a smaller gym. It's not great big.
Okay.
So 40 all together.
Okay. So you have more than a 6x6 grid.
Right. Yeah.
6x7, something like that. So that's, yeah, you don't have class sizes larger than 40, right?
No.
Okay.
And we're looking to cut all of our classes in half. So I can even put them for movability 3 grids apart and still be able to move. So the kid doesn't have to stay exactly 6 because he could have 12 on each side of him.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. All right. So Melissa's asking, how do you do a lead up to like the rhythms? How do you teach them to move and how to move before introducing the rhythm movements? Any ideas in how? And Melissa, feel free to clarify if I'm not clear on reading your.
Let's see, I guess in my classroom, well, I'm completely outdoors because I'm in California. And so I'm on a playground area. I thought about the grid, with cones maybe. We don't have a particular grid on the ground. But right now I teach rhythm movements in a circular pattern. So we travel either clockwise or counterclockwise, and we usually go to music. Maybe we'll do a freeze or something in between, or some type of game. And it's a great way to keep everybody moving. And I guess how to teach them to stay 6 feet apart, especially when you're starting with the Ks, ones. And do we have, I don't know if anybody's already taught in this situation and have cues that have worked, or that's kind of what I'm looking at.
Okay.
We use the Drums Alive a lot. So we might get away with the sticks, but we're probably not going to get away with the big drums. But we use a, what do you call it, where it goes back and forth, where it just has to
Metronome.
be, what was it?
Metronome.
Yes, we use a metronome on YouTube for them to follow. So there's not an actual song or anything for them to get lost to. And so it's just staying with the metronome.
Okay.
And we pick a pattern of drumming, either on the floor or pounding the sticks together, and we can change the location.
I did a pseudo fitness drumming yesterday. I didn't use any equipment. I let them use their hands up in the air, and then I had them touch their knees or their hips or the floor, and had them no equipment, and it worked great.
I know for us, we, for our squad spots, our students are already, even prior to this whole COVID thing, our students are probably 2 or 3 feet apart. And a lot of times to begin class, we do just dances or cosmic yoga. And then we do a lot of times for transitions, before drinks and things like that. But now, or before COVID, I would have at most probably 45 to 50 kids in class. But I think now we'll cut that in half. That will create more space for the kids. And we'll continue doing different things like just dance and stuff like that. But obviously, we all have to get more creative to make sure that our kids are continuing to stay engaged and not getting bored, and finding other ways for them to move, and different ways to quickly sanitize the equipment that we use as well.
Yeah.
What do you guys envision the time length for, or what do you guys typically have for time with your students? Because I'm like 40 minutes. I'm like, hula hoops are great for, you know, certain activities. But after 40 minutes, I'm like, that's definitely one of the things I'm going to use, especially out on the field as like bases or running spots. But I'm just trying to envision how to keep them separated for so long.
I'm looking at our schedule and thinking we're not going to have normal lengths. Because like we're looking at splitting our classes in half. So we'll only have kids from one group on Monday and Tuesday. So I have to see everybody in that group if we're going to see them on campus Monday, Tuesday. And then the decision is, do we even get to see them on campus, and we have to Zoom in when they're off on Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. So that's going to be, I'm guessing our classes are going to drop to about 30 minutes.
Okay. Even 30 minutes can be a long time in a hula hoop. So we're going to have to get super creative. Are there ways? Go ahead. Let's finish this.
One thing that I do, it doesn't always pertain to dance, but I try to find, at least for the kindergarten first graders for locomotor movements, I try to find children's stories that I can read, and as I read them, they act them out. And I'm hoping to be able to do that socially distanced, because they can still do it in their own space, just not as a class.
Mark, I think I got the picture of that. Can you go into a little bit more detail? You make up a story, or you choose a children's book? Or
actually, I kind of researched and found children's books that have movements in them, and then I read them as we act them out. Like Going on a Bear Hunt, you probably all heard of.
Yeah.
It's a great story to act out, and they all go through the different motions. I'm just thinking of ways to keep them active, and I think I don't do it in every class, but I think I might do it even more, because the kids really buy into the stories and they have fun acting them out. And it takes up, 5 minutes. It's a good warm up. Some Like Giraffes Can't Dance is all about dance, and it's about a kid or giraffe not wanting to dance in front of people. And I do it with, did you ever see Lassie? And we break into small groups, and the kids become the main character. And the point of the story is anybody can dance just by moving. And it's just a neat way to tie it in. So I'm envisioning myself using those more often during this.
Boy, those might be a good resource to throw out as we all discover different books like that, to make a list for all of us to use as well. That's great, Mark. Love it.
That book's actually on YouTube. We've done it and played it out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I actually, and I'll give you guys some of the books too. I actually wrote a book and put it on Amazon. It's called Stories That Kids Move To. I don't want to advertise it, but yeah, I'll still put out like a shorter list for you guys too, to consider some of my favorite ones.
Oh, fun, Mark. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
For sure. Cool. Anybody else?
I figure we're going to have to modify it some, but we've always started the year teaching the kids how to move around the gym and keep space. We're just now going to have to teach them how to keep more space.
Yeah.
And we have them do activities and stop and start and, you know, all those kind of things. But that's one of the things I've always started, especially with my younger kids. Let's remember how to move around and not run into each other.
Right.
Now we've got to learn how to move around and keep 6 feet of space.
Yeah.
There was a time when I was in college when I taught like a group of homeschool kids for one of my courses. And when we went through like spatial awareness and doing like zigzag patterns and skipping and all that kind of stuff, I always told them to just spread out their arms like they were an airplane, because normally that would be, you know, big enough, and then they could use their imagination. Or we used hula hoops that they could run around in, and I would say that that's like their spaceship, so that kind of gets their imagination going a little bit. And then they were better off keeping their space during that time when I use those type of ideas.
That's a great idea, Lauren.
Yeah, if we can use the hula hoops, or not hula hoops, pool noodles, I have enough of those that I can give each kid 2 that are close. And that would be a good way to start if we can use those.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Let me ask this. I think we use a lot of tag games to reinforce and teach our locomotor skills. What tag games, or how could we change our tag games to meet our 6 feet distance?
We play a lot of ours now with the pool noodles. And so if we can continue to use those.
Yeah, that's
hard to play shadow tag in a gym.
Yeah. Shadow tag's a good one though outside. Yeah, is a noodle with an arm extension. Is that close enough? Think we get by with that? Or
yeah,
I like the idea of that's like the growth mindset. In the chat, Leslie mentioned bumpers up. Could you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, I just always have them keep their arms out or up to keep people away from each other and as a way of protecting themselves. So they just seem to like that term, bumpers up. So they kept their hands to themselves and didn't let anybody else crash into them.
Okay, I like it.
Airplanes and bumpers.
Yeah. Well, those are great key words to use. Elizabeth's saying kids move in a hoop and drive around, not crashing. Oh, I see. I think I understand that. Elizabeth, you want to expand on that a little bit? Or did you put it in the chat so you wouldn't have to talk?
No, it's fine. They just, at the beginning of the year, we're working on spatial awareness, and we have kids stand in the hoop and they're holding it around their midsection, and you can pick a locomotor skill or not, but they just move around and they're being sure they don't crash into anyone.
So hashtag 6 feet PE, the idea of social distancing and physical education at the same time. And when we talk about thinking PE, right now what you're probably thinking is the anxiety and the frustrations and all the questions that come with how are we going to do this? But that's the difference between what you're thinking and what you're hearing, because with all these FIAD teachers gathered, we started to hear some very specific examples of things that we can actually do in our gym to teach that spatial awareness, or how we might say, for a number of years, we always put our kid in some kind of a line, but now we're finding out how to make grids in our gym and things like that to respect that social distancing. And another piece of the anxiety that comes in, just to put us at ease a little bit, is just remember, we're not going to be doing this alone. And what I mean by that is we're going to be doing this as a school and as a society. Just throughout their whole school day, they're going to be talking about social distancing, whether it's the lunchroom, the hallways, recess. We're focusing on what are we going to be doing in our gyms. And that's that collaborative effort that collaborative approach that we're going to be taking.
Yeah. So even I think you mentioned somewhere along the line, you've talked about we don't have to come up with every last detail of how to clean, because they're going to be cleaning in all their classes. The kids, everybody's going to have to clean equipment. So we can just kind of build on that. We don't have to take this on completely.
Yeah, we don't have to invent the wheel here.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I've loved the grid on the floor discussions, the ideas that come from talking about spatial awareness first, helping just build this into kids. Kids can be taught, and I just love it. The locomotor ideas that came up, I think the biggest one that jumped out at me was that using stories. Mark Ricketts brought that up, that, you know, going on a bear hunt, and you can work all of those, all of the locomotor skills, change the story, and they're doing different locomotor skills. It's just like genius. I don't know. You kind of mentioned it before, like, oh, why didn't we think of that?
Yeah, I got to tell you, just boom, mind blown when you first started talking about that. I'd never thought about, you know, reading a story to the kids and having them act out the animal characters. And I do a creative animal movement activity with the kids. And
right.
Just what a great way to do that. You know, so I got kind of interested. I looked up Mark Ricketts, and humble might be a good word to use for Mr. Ricketts there, because he's an author. He's a bona fide author. And
yeah,
you can find his stuff on Amazon. His story that he was talking about was stories that kids move to or read aloud of an activity reference guide. And I say it's right there on Amazon, and he's got quite a few other books to take a look at.
Yeah, he made it sound, and he was very respectful. I really appreciated that. He's like, I've got some other things to put out for you for free. I happen to have, you know, something I've written, put it on, you know, I put it on Amazon, and, you know, I appreciate him being very humble and very, not trying to turn it into a sales pitch, being respectful of this environment. People didn't go there to be, you know, sold a book. So, but on the flip side of that, if he's got some good stuff out there, like you said, we're happy to promote him. He doesn't have to promote himself. We're gonna do that for him. He seems super humble. So from what we can see, you check the books out yourself, but it seems like it's worth at least taking a visit to Amazon and checking Mark Ricketts out. Stories that make kids, or stories that kids move to, is the sound of it. And speaking of the free things that he put out, I believe on our Google Doc, he put a link, or I've added it to our Google Doc, where he put some of those stories on and where you can get them, and some good ideas there. So if you want to check that Google Doc out, it is growing. We're using the same Google Doc each week. So it's got last week's notes. It's got this week's notes. It'll have next week's notes. I even put down the whole chat that went along with this recording. I just put it in small font, and I put it right in there, so you can scan through it and see the chat on the side. People put different links to different things and different conversations. So it's becoming a very good resource. And if you want that, you can look for it on Twitter, on the Facebook pages that we're on. But also, if you just want to email us, our email address is thinkingpe.com. Or no, that's our website. Our email address is thinkingpe@gmail.com. So I just plugged our website too. How about that? So anything you want to say more about that? Otherwise, I was going to set up the next clip.
No, and I think to help you out here, I really liked how you took an activity. We take a very specific activity, and we find out how we're going to adjust and how we're going to adapt. And I'll let you go ahead and talk about this this variation of what it was, bulldozers and builders.
Yeah, some people have heard of I think it's fairly common, bulldozers and builders, where half the class knocks something down, half the class picks it back up. Well, this variation happens to be where they're using locomotor skills by putting a long pool noodle between half the class's feet. They jump around, hopping and jumping with the pool noodle between their feet, knocking small objects over. And then half the class, this teacher gave, it's like they're drumsticks, they're basically two sticks in their hands, and they have to, it's a little bit harder to pick a pin up when you're doing these sticks, so it works their hand-eye coordination as well. But we looked at this video, and as we looked at it, this is what the discussion is about. So I wanted to set this video up. Otherwise, some of the comments won't make much sense. So as you're watching this next clip, kind of keep that picture in mind. Enjoy.
I'm going to share my screen real quick, just this is an activity somebody put out on Twitter. I don't know exactly when. I guess it's probably the date's probably on there. But this is what I was trying to think of, if we could get into a brainstorming mode of if you've seen other things like this, how we could modify something like this. Are you seeing it right now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Where here, when you asked about, okay, if we keep kids in hula hoops, that's not going to work for 35 minutes. If we can get to some games, like a tag game, that's what I'm trying. I'd like to try to turn the conversation just for a few minutes that direction. Are there some games that we can play where we're still distance? I mean, maybe this isn't exactly, if you look, some kids are getting, I don't know. I just kind of wanted to throw this out there, change the direction of the conversation a bit here for a minute and to see. Because I'm worried about the 35, 40 minutes if we don't have games. And I was wondering if we could come up with some games. Any ideas or thoughts on this activity, how you can modify it?
I've seen that activity, that exact activity being done where they actually are playing tag by hopping on the grids and trying, hopping on the square lines to get around to try to tag either from the front or the back. They're trying to avoid a tagger, but also trying to tag.
Okay.
Except they would have to be within closer than 6 feet. Maybe you could use a full length pool noodle for that activity.
Yeah.
And the noodle has to, I don't know.
Well, here it looks like one group, their job is to knock something over, and the other group, it is
to set it up.
And maybe you could just really emphasize, if somebody gets to that square first, they're the first one, they get to get in there. And I don't know, maybe, do you think that would work, something like that, where you add the rule of they just have to stay 6 feet apart, or is that just going to be not going to happen?
I think it's going to be hard. I think one thing I'd like to do is teach more games that talk about the zones as part of like your spatial awareness, and say you can't be in a zone when somebody else is in a zone. At least start out with that. Try to think of games you can do like that.
Can we riff on that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I haven't planned yet, but that's what my thoughts are like. Just kind of teaching them, okay, if someone else is in your zone and have it taped out like this, you need to be in a different zone.
Yeah, because they have a grid there. Right in the
this is a great grid. Yeah.
So that's kind of how ours is set up. And we've actually done basketball this way, where the kids aren't allowed to leave their square.
Okay.
And then they rotate around the gym, so they're in different squares during the course of multiple games. But until we tell them they can move, they're in their square. And so then we have, so like if you think about a straight line, you have what, an offensive player, a defensive player, and an offensive player. So they've got to pass the ball past the kid in the middle, but everybody has to stay inside their square. And they're trying to get the ball to one end of the gym or the other to try to score in either the basket or hit a target or whatever it is you're trying to do. Another one we've done is walking across the gym. So they're in the grid lines on the end of the gym. And you can move forward. We use 3 steps, but you could use the line. I have a ball. I toss the ball to the person next to me. If they catch it, they get to move forward to the next spot. If they drop it, everybody in the line goes back to the beginning. There's some modifications that would have to be made there, but that would be one that works on teamwork. And we've done where you can't throw to the person next to you.
Yeah.
So depending on how talented they are on throwing, but the goal is to get the entire team across the gym.
Yeah. Nod your head if that's making sense to you, just so I kind of get a feel for if you should explain it some more. Or, okay. Yeah, I love to. Go ahead, somebody.
I was also thinking, when teaching locomotor skills, doing like a pathway and figure out somehow to order. So, okay, everybody switch zones and then do a zigzag skipping to the next zone, and then do, and kind of travel from zone to zone.
Yeah. No, this zone thing's got my brain going. I'm kind of feeling a little bit better all of a sudden. Maybe there's a potential. And you could do this if you have grass. You could take a lawnmower and mow a grid. and mow some zones.
Or go get the paint.
Yeah, or just the paint.
Well, Jamie, listening to that, what jumped out at me is I just love how when you get teachers focused on something, we're all watching the same thing, and you could hear the ideas start to pop. It's like popcorn. Oh, we could do this. And, oh, well, we could do this, and pop, 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 pop. And pretty soon we're like, oh, that might work, but then this, well, but then do it this way. And it felt really good. I just love that kind of brainstorming. It's what we started our overall discussion with before we actually started. We talked about that growth mindset of let's try to keep these ideas going, not bringing up the ideas why it wouldn't work. Let's try to figure out how maybe we can. And that's just really what that felt like to me.
I couldn't agree more. And that's really kind of been the theme of these conversations. We started with the locomotor skills. Initially, we started to hear a lot of things that weren't going to work, or we're not going to be able to do this. And the conversation just grew into some solid ways that we can actually do some of this stuff. And as we move into non-locomotor skills, wow, the weight transfer, the balance, specifically gymnastics, I think what you're going to hear right away is you're going to hear some of that anxiety and some of that immediate hesitation that comes out. And it's completely normal. This is so new, but you also get a chance to see how it flows into, again, more of that growth mindset where, yeah, maybe there are some things that we can do to teach gymnastics or other ways to meet that standard.
Yeah.
So, yeah, let's take a listen to this next segment.
Yeah.
Let me throw this out there, kind of taking a new direction to the non-locomotor skills. Just I want you to think of how you taught the balance, the weight transfer, and gymnastics, and now how can we do that in a social distance setting and sanitize the equipment? So what might those structures look like?
I think we're going to have a hard time using anything that has a mat. So it's all going to be stationary.
So just as part of gymnastics, even with floor activities and balance and weight transfer, we really depend on those mats. Is there something, how can we use those mats? I mean, right away, I'm thinking, even to spread the kids out, I don't have enough mats.
Yeah.
So it's I wonder if we could build that into the structure of just have the wipes available so that this student, you are on this part of the mat, this student, you are on this part of the mat, and when you're done or when we switch, you have to sanitize it. So granted, they don't get the repetitions that they might have gotten in the past, but it's a start to teaching gymnastics again.
Yeah.
I think with the older kids, that would be easier to get them to clean the stuff, but I don't know if, depending on where we are and how they're concerned about it, getting the younger kids to clean for us.
I would actually challenge that because my fourth grader can't vacuum the floor.
I don't disagree with you there. That's kind of the whole.
So,
but you know what? As a former wrestler, we clean those mats pretty quick.
Oh yeah.
You've got different methods. If you put a broom, you've got the whole sanitizing, bucket, and you put 1 or 2 towels down. You run a broom over it, and you could, as long as you could have kids in an area for a while, even if you had 2 different stations, half of them were doing gymnastics and half of them were doing something else, even 1 to 2 minutes, you could have those mats cleaned with those brooms. So that's another possibility.
Yeah.
Would it be easy to, like, especially with the 4th and 5th graders, if they had like their squad was assigned that job for the week, or for whatever, like however many classes you want, so that they're in charge of it, so they get some ownership of.
That's a great idea.
Cleaning the equipment and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That might work with that age. Would it work with 7th and 8th graders?
Maybe if you get them to buy into it.
I could see parents complaining that their kids have to clean, being that they're worried their kids are touching more things,
That's true.
And the chemicals, we're restricted to not, kids can't even use, we couldn't, bleach wipes, Clorox wipes. I'm wondering if parents would have an issue with the kids being around chemical, we just don't know.
Our teachers have to go through a training before we can even use hand sanitizer or wipes. I'm not
I'm
kidding.
sorry, I shouldn't laugh, but it sounds like a joke.
It's ridiculous.
Well, I taught gymnastics by putting out 30 mats, and each mat had a couple different spark station cards at it, and they would rotate after 45 seconds. So maybe now, instead of them having a card, I could just project a couple different options, and then they would stay on their own mat. So if I picked activities where they're not putting their face on the mat or putting their hands on the mat, it's just more for safety, we probably could get away with having the next class come in and also stand on the mat.
Yeah. No, but the idea of cleaning the mats, again, a lot of that, if it's done with a mop or a broom with a towel, then students wouldn't really be touching the chemicals. And then any other chemicals we use, if we could use the same stuff as they're putting on their hands, then we might be able to get by with that. But yeah, I'm not going to promise that with what I've seen. So
Maybe if you just had one mat that has rolling or something where you know they're putting their hands on the surface often, you could quickly clean that one as they're lining up, and then maybe it would be dry by the next group, and the rest could just focus on balance and different things where they're not putting their hands down.
Yeah.
So I would even throw out there, we would be able to complement whatever they're doing in the classroom, because however they're doing the classroom, they're going to have to be cleaning or sanitizing or something as a routine in their classrooms. And I'm sure we would get some guide, or as schools we would get some sort of guidance from our administration or from our departments of health on how that's going to happen, and just kind of piggyback off what classroom teachers are already doing.
Yeah.
We're already going to do.
And somebody was just posting in the chat about the more we learn about the virus, the less they're worried about surfaces and more the person in the air. So maybe that will calm down a little bit by the time we start school. Again, can we focus on games? Are there some games or at least interactive? Go ahead, Jamie.
Only because in the chat, I just caught it. Somebody actually put in here yoga mats, and maybe that.
Where they bring their own?
Because I was just thinking, I personally don't have enough of the 1.5-inch, 2-inch mats. I mean, not even close to enough. But if you had a whole, yoga mats are way cheaper than those.
You can get them for $5 on Below 5 or Five Below. That store. You can buy them online. I'm going to order more.
Okay.
So there, definitely adjust some of the gymnastic, activities that we do so that it's safe. But that's an interesting one.
Yeah, and somebody was mentioned earlier about using the mats as more balance and safety rather than hands and feet and face on, if they're just doing balancing and different types of activities, then we probably wouldn't have to worry about washing them as much if you have 2 classes in a row, that type of a thing. Cool. How about games or interactive? Where could we still have kids do a tandem dance or a tandem gymnastics routine, and even though they work in their grid together, or each in their own grid, but they're working they can still communicate with each other and build a same routine, and then they would just stay. It'd be like what's that swimming in the Olympics, the synchronized swimming, but you just have to stay 6 feet apart.
Yeah, good idea.
I'm just trying to think of ways we can still have the kids interact, whether it's by game or teaming up or building a routine together.
How about for balanced weight transfer? We've been focusing on gymnastics. Is there another way to meet that standard?
Great question, Jamie.
Other than gymnastics?
We could always do the rock, paper, scissors with the win, lose, or draw with the different poses that they would have to get into.
Oh.
So they just face to face, do the rock, paper, scissors, or do the Alaskan rock, paper, scissors, which has more movement. And then depending on what they got, they would look up on the screen and go, okay, for this round, if I won, I have to do this. If I lost, I do this. If I tie, I do this.
Okay.
Hold the pose.
I like it. I like that kind of thinking. Just they're interacting but staying apart, for sure.
Has anybody here not heard of the Alaska rock, paper, scissors?
The Alaska one?
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with Alaska.
So you can still do it back with the space, but you turn away from each other. You jump up and down 3 times, and then you jump and turn and face each other, and you have a bear who eats salmon, and the mosquito eats the bear. And so the kids go this or salmon or mosquito.
That's cool.
I love it.
So that one, you could do that one at 6 feet apart, just facing away, count out loud to 3, 1, 2, 3, and then jump and turn and face each other.
Cool. And again, you could have poses. Is that what you were saying up on the screen?
Yeah.
They do different balances, different poses.
Yeah. And you can change it for each round.
Yeah.
So you could have it up there for this round. This is what you're going to do. And you can play it 2 or 3 times or change it for every round. Have it do slide.
Yeah.
With the new activities.
Yeah, and let's go ahead.
Just a couple things in the chat here, because we were talking about an alternative to gymnastic routines, and Melissa put jump rope routines in the chat, and then yoga wheel works on balance. Leslie, can you expand on that? I'm not familiar with yoga wheel.
Oh, there's a yoga wheel. You can actually make it. There's some out there too, just with a wheel template, and it just has all different poses on it. So they can spin the wheel. You can do it on a computer, or you can have, one made for each student, or however you want to do it, laminate, and you can wipe it off. And they just spin it, and wherever it lands on, that's their balance move they have to do.
Yeah, I like it.
We've done the rock, paper, scissors against the computer, where it's a slide and it already knows what it's going to tell the kids. And each kid is just playing the computer.
Okay.
And so then it's the same thing. You're not playing each other, but that would be the way to monitor it.
Yeah, any of those activities where there's a screen and engaging them in different ways are, those are going to be the simplest ones to maybe we'll probably all start with. Where they stay spread out and we're just focused on the screen. But I'm thinking at some point we have to be engaged to keep the kids' attention for that long. I mean, whether it's you playing the game too, or I don't know. I just think we're going to have to get a step further than just watching the screen. But I saw Ben Landers put out a video just of Hokey Pokey, where you just had the kids use a hula hoop, and you do the hokey pokey, and then when you turn yourself around, or you go around your hula hoop, and you do it either skipping or galloping, or you change it up and that type of a thing. But I was watching him and I thought, he's the reason they're still engaged, because he was shaking his booty in the hoop and he was animated, and I thought if he was just playing the music, they're going to get bored after 2 times around. But when he's in there, that just kind of registered in my head, going, this could really work if the teacher is there providing the energy and the kids reflecting that energy. Otherwise, it's going to, you're only going to get 3 minutes out of that activity. That's kind of what stirred that in my head.
I do the videos a lot, but then I'm constantly allows me to go interact with the kids while we do the activity.
Well, that helps too.
Because that gives me that ability to go see each kid as they're watching, and they can always watch me because I'm doing it with them, but that gives me that ability to not be the driver all the time.
Yep.
And then I can go work with kids.
I like it. Then you can break the 6-foot rule all you want.
Right. With my full hazmat suit.
That's right. That would be fun if we all came in those the first day. Scare them to death.
So could Peter Z tell us about Mirror Mirror? Because I think this might, if it's what I think it is, it might be a great activity for student ownership and balance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, hey everyone. Yeah, it's just an interactive activity. Mirror Mirror. I like it best for the smaller kids, K1, 2, probably 3 up to 3rd grade. And it's just where you partner up. You partner up with someone, but obviously, get 6 feet apart or bigger. You start with one partner partner and you just copy. One of them starts with a movement. They could put their arms up, they could put their hands out, they could do any movement, and the other student has to copy them, like the reflection in the mirror. And he or she copies. They could do a dance, they could do the little, like the floss that they love to, anything, whatever they want. You can expand the groups. You can have a group of 4. You have two people, mirror with the other 2 people. And then eventually try to get it the entire class. You could have 10 mirror with the other mirror, or even 12 and 12, depending on how big your class is. But just make sure they're all spaced out entirely. They seem to enjoy it. It's pretty fun.
That sounds great.
Yeah, I like that because they could. It could be that challenge too. You know, the kid that can create the pose or something that nobody else can do.
Yeah, and in terms of gymnastics and balance, you know, you can have one of the students start on one leg, the other student copy that, then maybe hop on one leg. You know, you get creative with that, incorporate gymnastics in it, some balance. They could maybe even start doing some rolls if you're out on the grass area, some easy small rolls.
Yeah.
So then, if I look, Audrey here, gymnastics stunts on individual mats, and dog walk, duck walk, inchworm, frog hops. So you want to expand on that, Audrey?
I don't know what more to say. I mean, if they're on their individual mats, you can make them do the balance kind of things, not cartwheels or anything like that, because I wouldn't be able to spot them or anything. But some of these things would be something they can do that's working all those muscles.
Yeah, and actually the yoga mats would be.
Yeah,
I think
that's it.
You know, those $5 yoga mats, and you know, we've done these for so long, and I think we could get some pretty creative challenges built into those as well to challenge some of those kids.
I like the idea of the yoga mats because that would cut down on the time. I mean, if they could bring it to FIED with them, you know, maybe they could clean it back in their classroom, and that would negate the time of having to clean it, you know, during their FIED time.
Yeah, that's a great thought.
Oh, Leslie's got one here, and this will be the final one here, and we'll move on for the night here. But you've got looks like you've got the big circle and the small circle, and rotating the circle, so it's kind of like that mirror. But now everybody, correct me if I'm wrong here, but Leslie, what you're saying, basically everybody gets a chance to be that leader.
Yes, and you just move, you know, be random. So everybody gets to be paired up with someone different. It's really great, especially the beginning of the year, because students are having to talk to kids they don't know, but it's not a very threatening situation. So
I've run the idea by my principal, speaking of having them bring stuff, getting a set of equipment that we kind of agree to use, and the kids bring to PE via email when we tell them what piece of equipment we're going to use that day. You know, bring a ball of some sort, bring, you know, whatever. And then we could have a few that we have to clean, but each kid's going to bring their own basketball or their own, you know, whatever, out of 10 pieces we want to use throughout the course of the year.
So who would, are you thinking that you would have the kids purchase this, that you would give like the class supply list for PE and they would need to have it? God, I would love to do
I mean,
that.
we could have some filler pieces, but then the kids that can bring it, we don't have to worry about cleaning it all the time. And they can take it and use it at recess.
Uh-huh.
And so then they could take it and use it at home. Just give them, you know, pick 10 pieces of easy equipment or 5 pieces of easy equipment, whatever, and just go, we're going to teach you multiple ways to use this one piece of equipment.
Yep.
Through the course of the year.
I took a class last Friday. It's called Ply Yoga. I don't know if anybody has heard of it. but I found it on one of the PE Facebook pages. And basically, it's merging plyometrics and yoga together. And it's a great tool that you could use. They could do it inside the grid on the gym floor.
Jamie, anything else before we wrap up? And then
No,
we can keep the conversation going, but I just want to.
Yeah, I do want to thank everyone, and I hope you're learning something, because truthfully, this is how I learn. Because when it comes to 6 foot PE, I actually have no idea. I have no idea how it's going to work until I start talking to people, and then you start generating some of those ideas that, yeah, maybe we could do something with gymnastics. It's not going to look anything like I've done in the past, but we can make some of those adaptations and accommodations to still provide that meaningful physical education. And I really think that's the important part, is that growth mindset. That it's just groups like this that start throwing ideas out, and look what happened with distance learning. It started out with just taskless, run around the house 5 times, run around the house the other way 5 times, skip around the house, and then choose your way you want to go around the house. And it growed into, now we're creating videos, and everybody grows at different paces. But I think everybody can look back from the first week of distance learning to the last week and see the significant growth that you made as an individual. And I think we're going to see the same thing here with 6 foot PE.
Yeah, I like it.
Jamie, I think you just tried to sneak the word "growed" into a podcast.
I didn't try. I forced that word in there. That's why I probably stick to maybe making coloring books instead of being a bona fide author like Mr. Mark Ricketts there.
Nice. I agree. Oh, hey, but I tell you what, I think that last segment was one of the best examples of brainstorming you could have on any subject. It was just like, we started out kind of this plodding along about mats. Can we use them? Can we not? How could we? Yeah, you can't. But now, well, parents let us this, but it's just like the ideas just kept coming and coming. And by the end there, I think people need to go back and rewind that. There's just ideas were flying left and right about what activities to do and variations and boom, 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 boom. I think that was just a fabulous way to end this session.
I could not agree more. And that's the exact reason why we were doing this. It's not to come up with all the ideas. It's not to write a book, even though I'm highly not qualified to do that. But it's to start those conversations and start the brainstorming that it is possible. Otherwise we do have that potential to talk ourselves right out of a job. And that's one of my biggest fears, is when we're approached to, can this be done, that we can with confidence say the answer is yes. And look at the growth that we did just in distance learning in 10 short weeks.
Yeah.
And to something that couldn't be done. And 6 feet PE is the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. It's just a fun way to end that session, which leads me to say next Thursday night, that'll be June 11th at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. We're going to do this again, but we're going to really try to focus on, again, standard 1, but we're going to be focused on manipulatives, the throwing, the catching, the dribbling, the jump ropes, any of the manipulatives. We're going to see if we have time to get through them all, but we're going to try to brainstorm again, just like we did this time. And I think we're going to come away with some fabulous ideas.
Oh man, that was a great session on brainstorming locomotor and non-locomotor skills using hashtag 6 feet PE.
And Jamie, that was Thinking PE.